Yo, Beth, that shit crazy.
Welcome, everybody, to All Even Live exclusive. My name is Barry Grant Jr., host of the All Even podcast. To my left is Mike Guido, host of Guido's Gridiron Blitz. Down at the bottom is Matt the Great Catarizzolo. And who we have at the bottom today, or who we have on the show today, is NFL draft analyst for Bleacher Report. He's also the co-host of That So Mets pod. Welcome to the show, Connor Rodgers.
Thanks, guys. How you doing? I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. So, Mike and Matt, they're big draft guys. So I'm going to let them go ahead and ask the first question. Go ahead, man.
So, Connor, I want to start with your Jets, man, because, number 2 pick in the draft, I think it was a foregone conclusion that they were going to go Zach Wilson. And then they trade up, right? That was the big shock of the day, I think, when they traded up 9 spots to get Elijah Vera Tucker. Overall, right, Joe Douglas, I think, even from last year, we kind of saw it when he took Mekhi Becton, Denzel Mims. Like, we thought he had a pretty good draft, right? Ashton Davis. This year, kind of the same deal. There's a lot of good football players in that draft. What do you as a Jet guy, what'd you think?
Well, I think he's obviously putting his real blueprint and real identity of this team together. And it takes a while to do that when you're coming from a situation where the roster is just very barren. And, a very similar comparison situation is the Lions in the NFC, where Patricia kind of now has this reputation as a guy that came in and tears things apart, runs veterans out of the building, has his guys in, doesn't win any games. And Gase did the same thing with the Jets, where you're starting from scratch. Now, the good thing for Joe Douglas is he got that year head start, like you said. I know, obviously, for Brad Holmes with the Lions, it's, they're coming in and they got a long ways to go. But Joe Douglas got that long deal as well. So this is finally when you have 2 huge draft classes, right? 9, 10 players, 2 free agency classes where he had a lot of money to spend. Now, he didn't go crazy, but he absolutely added some players. You can start to see an identity. You can start to see what kind of players he likes. He wants to be bigger, faster, and stronger than everybody. And I think a lot of NFL teams are obviously trying to do it, but there's a difference between trying to do it and making an actual concerted effort to go get it done. So the Zach Wilson pick, you can say what you want about it. There's a lot of believers, including myself. There's a lot of people that are skeptical. Totally understand that. But at the end of the day, he knows that what he puts around Zach Wilson is just important as actually Zach Wilson's ability himself. And I think that starts with a left side of Mekhi Becton and Elijah Vera Tucker, where, quite frankly, in each of those classes, there were not a lot of players like those guys. With Becton, it's his size and strength and athleticism at that size. But with Elijah Vera Tucker, it's a bit of the same. He's not as big, obviously. Nobody's as big as Mekhi Becton. But that speed, explosiveness, what you could do in the outside running game, as well as keeping your quarterback upright and just being tougher and nastier than everybody and making life easier on your rookie quarterback. And then obviously you kind of double and triple down when you take a wide receiver as talented as Elijah Moore at 34, reminds me of Brandon Cooks, and Michael Carter, the running back at the top of day 3, reminds me of Devontae Freeman. So this is a team that has had trouble on offense. They don't score any points. They really have no skill talent. And now in the matter of 2 years, sign Corey Davis, draft Denzel Mims, combined with this draft, you could start to see it going in the right direction.
Yeah, you certainly can't. Real quick, Matt, before you go. So Mel Kiper, during the draft coverage, right, he was saying that if Sam Darnold had come out in this draft, he'd be QB2. It'd be Trevor Lawrence and then him. So I'm curious, because the big debate was, okay, should the Jets stick with Sam Darnold, because a lot of people still like him, even me, or should they move on and go with Zach Wilson? So how did you compare Zach Wilson as a prospect to Sam Darnold as a prospect?
Well, right out of the gate, a much better one. And I know I'm probably a little unique in the situation that I was lower on Sam than a lot of people. And I thought still, even with that being said, I thought Sam can find success. And considering the situation he's in Carolina, if he doesn't find success there, it's just never going to happen, because they have a boatload of talent at the wide receiver and running back positions. The offensive line's starting to figure it out, and they have a great young play caller in Joe Brady. So we'll see where that goes. But why I look at it, so there's 2 sides to it. My side of it, which once again is unique, just as an evaluator, and I miss like everyone else. But with Sam in that class, I had him as QB4, right? And there's misses and hits above him. I had Josh Rosen would be a player I had above him that was a huge miss. But Lamar Jackson and Baker Mayfield that I had above him have been significantly better players than Sam Darnold, especially this year for Baker. Lamar really almost out of the gate. Year 2, I think, was when he won the MVP. So, and a lot of people did not see it that way. They saw Sam as the top quarterback or top 2 quarterback in the class. So I thought he warranted being a first round pick. Didn't think he warranted being this top 3, top 5 kind of pick when those quarterbacks were in the same class. So when you look at it, I felt this was a special quarterback class as well. I had Trevor Lawrence as the top guy, then Zach Wilson as the 3rd overall player, only behind Lawrence and Penei Sewell. Loved Justin Fields and Trey Lance, had them in the top 5 as well. I never do that with quarterbacks. I usually have, one quarterback in the top 10 and then it trickles down. But this year, I really thought all 4 of those guys were franchise-level passers, and I think they will be. I think Trey goes through a great situation in San Francisco. I think Fields can really finally elevate a Chicago team that needs that. I think Wilson, you're seeing him get a lot of help from Joe Douglas early on. I don't really love what Jacksonville is doing, but Trevor Lawrence is so good that he might rise above it at some point. But when you look at it just with the Wilson situation, yeah, he's one of my favorite quarterbacks that I've ever evaluated, honestly. I'm trying to think of guys I'd put above him besides Lawrence, and it's a very, very short list. Maybe probably Joe Burrow would be above Zach Wilson. Kyler Murray I probably would have had or equal to or above Zach Wilson. Deshaun Watson I would have had above Zach Wilson. He was my top quarterback in that class, and just obviously a special talent. And I think that pretty much sums it up. He's that level of player for me.
Mm.
Yeah, Connor, I think something that is very interesting about this draft in particular is that there was so much unpredictability in the top 10 in particular. Like people even not like well-versed in draft tactics were kind of predicting all this movement, especially in the first round. Right. And I still think there were so many moves that surprised us. We didn't predict the Giants trading back, Chicago trading up for Justin Fields, the Jets trading up for Elijah Vera Tucker. So was there anything in your sphere that really shocked you or really just took you by surprise?
Ooh, that's a good one. I think the Jets moving up did not, because as much as people don't like what they gave up, they have like 1 million picks from last year to 2022. Next year they have 11 selections. They have an extra first, an extra second. I mean, on and on. They just have extra picks in every round. And then obviously this year it was pretty similar in that sense where, you just don't go into camp with that many players because they won't all make the roster. It's just impossible. So that's why the movement didn't surprise me, considering they wanted a premium player. They didn't want to take any chances. And a lot of people view Vera Tucker as a guy that has a high floor. So that move didn't surprise me. The Giants moving back did, and for good reasons. We've never seen Dave Gettleman do it. I know everybody loves that, running that storyline into the ground, but not the fact that they actually did it, but the way they did, where they found a regime at the Bears. They're desperate. I mean, it's amazing that they actually still are in control there. I thought they would move on from both the head coach and the GM this offseason, and they didn't. And fortunately for Chicago, that trade, if Justin Fields works out, it's worth it every time. But for the Giants, it's easily worth it because Devontae Smith was gone, and I think that was always the guy for them. I really, really do, no matter what they say. So you move back. Kadarius Toney, it was a little early for me, right? And whatever you make of that. But you got an extra first-round pick. So I think when you look at it at the end of the day, when you compare what they would have done with that 11th overall selection compared to Toney plus more draft capital, we'll evaluate the trade as a whole. It's hard to envision that not being a win at the end of the day for the Giants, whether Gettleman's making that pick next year or not. So that move surprised me, and I really, really liked it. I think at the end of the day, the Vikings always move around, so not a ton of surprise there. I think Fields falling that far absolutely surprised me. I know the Bears were even surprised, right? They were looking at it like, wow, I can't believe we can get up into this spot to go get him, because not a lot of people want to move back to 20, considering where you expect Fields to go. So it was interesting. I think I always heard the Eagles were going to move up. I didn't think it would be for Devontae Smith, but considering how they jumped the Giants, that does make a lot of sense. So for a draft with a lot of unpredictability, I think it was more the players that were taken in the spots rather than the movement or lack thereof.
Yeah, definitely. I like what the Jets have done in the draft. I think the Jets are one of the big winners in the draft, just in the totality of it. I also like what the Lions did as well. What are your kind of like top 3 teams in regards to like total draft, like how well they did, and who do you think can be able to kind of make a significant jump due to what they did in the draft next season?
I'm with you with the Lions. They jumped out to me right away because of the volume of talent they got, right? Penei Sewell, like I said, second best player in the draft for me. Right. I think they got him at 7. And I don't care that, people are like, oh, they have a left tackle. Well, it's good to have a good left and right tackle. They have Frank Ragnow on the interior, one of the best interior linemen in the game. For a quarterback in Jared Goff that, he can't move very well, but when he's protected, he throws the hell out of the ball. So I know people don't like Jared Goff, and he has his limitations. There's no doubt about that. But if you're betting on him, which they are a little bit by taking on his money and giving him a shot, do him right and put something in front of him. And that's what they've done. And then on the other side of the ball, I think they're building it in the trenches. And they got a couple of really good defensive linemen as well. Amon-Ra St. Brown is a nice add at wide receiver, very late. Yeah. Right, yeah, just to go up and win the football kind of player, which Goff is a touch thrower that needs those kind of guys. When you watch him with the Rams, even going back to Cal, is a bit of the same thing. So I think when you look at it, the Lions crushed it. I love what the Niners did. They got a couple good running backs to that scheme after getting Trey Lance, and they got the guard from Notre Dame that reminds me of Laken Tomlinson, which is funny that, that was the comparison. And then the team that has started Laken Tomlinson drafts him, and it's Aaron Banks. And that Notre Dame offensive line was loaded, and he's a bully. He's a powerhouse. So really like what the Niners did. I know there's been up and down feelings with the Ravens, but I really like what they did. I liked Rashad Bateman a lot. They couldn't get a wide receiver to sign there, probably because it's a run-heavy offense, and people have doubts about their production. You're not going to get a Juju to take a one-year deal there because then he's playing in a contract year, and the numbers typically aren't there. Bateman is everything they needed. I really like him. He reminds me a little bit of Keenan Allen, a little bit of Stevie Johnson that used to play for the Bills. That unorthodox release off the line of scrimmage to get open. No problem going in traffic. No problem winning the ball. A little bit of juice after the catch. Lamar will find him when the play breaks down. So I think the Ravens did a really, really nice job. So, yeah, I think a lot of teams did well. I thought Miami, while they didn't have my favorite draft in terms of volume, I think they hit on some really key spots. I love Jalen Waddle. I think Jalen Phillips could be the best pass rusher in this draft. He has the talent to be the defensive rookie of the year. Wow. And then they got Liam Eichenberg, a reliable pass protector that'll probably he'll play on the right side for them. They've had some pass protection woes. You can't have that with Tua. If he takes too many hits, he's just going to break. Right. So I think Miami did a lot of really nice things as well.
All right. Awesome.
Yeah. I think the more that we see this, I think more teams are getting better at this, right? Because we're seeing the impact that it has. And I think teams take it a little bit more seriously. So I got to ask you about my Dallas Cowboys. I've heard, and I tend to agree, that their draft is one of the hardest to evaluate because they took some big swings. They really did. Right. But at the end of the day, and I think this is what people need to come to realize, if you reach or if you don't reach, okay, the goal is to either fix the problem that you have or accumulate a bunch of really good football players to make your team better. Okay. Dallas's problem was defense. The first 6 picks of their draft and 8 out of their 11 were on the defensive side of the football. So bar none, their defense, chances are, got better to some capacity. What's your take on the whole Cowboy draft?
They absolutely did. Number one, you hired Dan Quinn, so you're expecting improvement by default with coaching.
Absolutely.
And I think that, it's a scheme that can minimize a lot of the big plays or problems they had last year. Now, what I'll say with the draft is it just felt like a roller coaster ride to me where I thought Micah Parsons was the best defensive player in the draft. So, I'm typically not a big fan of linebacker in round 1. If you're going to do it, you do it for that kind of guy. That's a 3-down player. He can rush the passer as a blitzer. The run and coverage skills are there to develop. He's great against the run. I mean, he could really erase tight ends and running backs in the pass game. So Parsons, to me, I have no problem with that pick. I think it's a shame that they couldn't get a J.C. Horn or a Surtain, but it just happens. It's out of your hands sometimes. So right. I think when you look at it, you'd love to have one of those guys. And Parsons is a good prize after that. Now, my problem with Kelvin Joseph at 44 is what Kelvin Joseph are you getting? Because there's round 1 traits. But there was some problems at LSU, clearly, that led to him moving on to Kentucky, and then things did not end well at Kentucky. And you're just sitting there wondering, well, is it going to get better with the Cowboys? And I remember, sitting on the desk during the Bleacher Report show, and Aqib Talib was with us, and Aqib made a really good point. He goes, man, when you go to Dallas and you have a guy like that, he goes, they'll hire somebody to hold his hand, is essentially what he was saying. Right. And it's like, then maybe that is the right landing spot for him to get focused and to get right. So with Kelvin, all the talent in the world, it hasn't fully clicked yet. And it seems more of like a focus thing at the time. So that's a big swing because I think you need Kelvin Joseph to start. So I'm very curious to see how that boomer bust selection works out. Like I said, Parsons should be a great player. Odigizua, I mean, really strong hands, great leverage, tough on the inside. They needed that on their defensive line. He's the perfect player for them in that situation. A guy that just won't get bullied or pushed around and can control the point of attack. You know, Chauncey Golston, I thought that was early. I thought he was a developmental pass rusher. And the same with Nashawn Wright at corner, that really, really long, lengthy cover three kind of corner. But I love Jabril Cox, right? Jabril Cox, to me, was the top, 60 player in this draft. They get him at 115. So one of the best cover linebackers in this entire draft. So the middle of their defense has speed, athleticism. They got a little tougher in the middle on the up front as well, like I said, with Osa. And then Simi Fehoko was a receiver that I liked on day 3 a lot. I think he can go up and win the football, and I think he's got enough athleticism to actually win or challenge over the top. So they had a weird draft where, the Josh Ball pick, Josh Ball could play. There's no doubt about it. He can play. He's got significant off the field stuff, and it's not. I don't think it's questionable. I think it's like we know this has been proven already. Yeah. So that's where it's kind of tricky.
It's a jerry pick. It definitely.
It is a jerry pick, and it's it's tricky how those work out because with Dallas we've seen it go both ways so many times. So like they always say, guys, if you get 3 starters out of a draft class, it's a home run. With Dallas right here, as much as I don't like all of the selections, and there's some huge head scratchers in terms of character. I mean, Micah Parsons, Odigizua, and Jabril Cox, I evaluated them all as absolute locks as starters at the next level. So it's hard to sit here and kill their draft. But like you said, they needed to load up on defense.
I have a very good feeling about Quinton Bohanna.
He's a mammoth in the middle, man.
He is huge.
You just put him in the middle and you say, listen, don't let anybody move you backwards. Eat your gaps, control. Play 8 snaps a game on a big day, right?
The guy weighs 7,000 pounds.
I mean, he's a truck. He really is. He is. But they needed someone like that. They needed somebody on early downs or the goal line that, quite frankly, just eats space. And it's crazy to say because you could find those guys off the scrap heap in today's NFL. They just don't get paid. And, that's why you get him on day 3 of the draft. And while it might be a rotational role where he plays like 15% of the snaps each game, it can make a big difference.
Yeah, real quick, Matt, before you go, the Dallas draft to me, like you said, is very up and down. It's very, it's head scratching at points. But the one thing that I've noticed that they went with is length. They went with a lot of length. And do you think as a draft analyst that length kind of equates to good defense? Because we know that there's a lot of guys out there that are 5'9", they don't have long wingspans, but they're very good defenders. I always look at like basketball. Okay, you can be able to equate wingspan and stuff like that to rim protection, but does that equate to football?
It's a great question, and it really depends. Right now, it helps a lot, and limitations in the NFL are very real, and thresholds are very real. Right? There's teams. I know the Colts are one of those teams that they don't typically draft corners with short arms. They typically draft corners with the longest arms in the draft. Now, when you look at Dallas, it can help. Now, what I say is when teams reach on long corners, and I'm not talking about Kelvin Joseph here because he has the talent to warrant being that second-round pick. And when you look at Wright, he's an interesting player because he's like a 6'4" corner.
Right.
Now, the thing that you need to develop, because the Jets did this with Jason Pinnock as well from Pitt, he was a player like Wright that I didn't have in the top 250. And each team took these guys like, hey, they're going to probably be on the field for us at this point in this year. They both run very heavy cover 3 schemes. The length matters to disrupt at the line of scrimmage and to compete at the catch point. The only problem is if you don't have the awareness, you won't compete at the catch point. If you don't know the ball is there, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. It helps to get your arms up and disrupt hands, but it's hard to play in the secondary in the NFL anymore. They call everything. So they even call hands like base guarding. It's a different league. Now, I like that you brought this up because it was a theme with the Dallas draft, not just in the secondary. Chauncey Golston had some of the longest arms out of the pass rushers, and that's his calling card, right? There's not a ton of explosion off the snap. There's not a ton of, I have a pass rush plan, but I have long arms and can win with a swim move or can counter inside or I can be coached up where I'm taught how to disengage from blocks using these long arms. So it goes a couple of directions, and it actually hurts guys as well. I mean, you look at somebody like Chris Harris, who's one of the best slot corners in NFL history in my eyes,
Right.
and he went undrafted. And it was probably because he was 5'10", he was a smaller corner, and he played in a secondary with Aqib Talib, where teams were watching Kansas that year, and they look at Aqib, who was a mega star and had the length and athleticism and absolutely deserved to be a round 1 pick. And then they look at Chris Harris and go, man, he doesn't have any of those kinds of traits that we love, and they both end up being superstar corners. So.
Right.
It goes both ways. Teams unfortunately overlook players because they get obsessed with length, but teams also hit on diamonds in the rough because they find guys that meet that requisite. And all I could say is with Dallas, Will McClay, who really runs the drafts there.
He's awesome.
When the Jones family can stay out of his way, Will is one of the best in the NFL at doing this and finding these types of players. So it's great that they have somebody like that in the room that understands these thresholds.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, Connor, I think one of the things that'll cause a lot of debate even pre-draft was what to do with Cincinnati at their pick selection. So personally, I can't value picking a weapon, no matter what sort of previous chemistry the wide receiver could have had with their current quarterback. I can't value that over adequate protection, especially what had happened to Joe Burrow that previous season. So what was your just gut reaction when the Bengals selected Chase when Penei Sewell was still available?
It's a little frustration because of what they didn't do leading up to this. I think I love Jamar Chase, and I keep telling people I think Burrow and Chase can be this decade's Matt Ryan and Julio, and I really mean that. I think that they can be guys that every year you're going for 12 to 1,400 yards, 8 to 10 touchdowns, a true nightmare that's constantly seeing these double teams where whoever the number 2 and 3 wide receivers are, they're going to have these dream matchups, and all of that's great. But I fully agree with you. It doesn't matter if your quarterback is not protected, especially since his knee has literally been shredded in half already.
Right.
You're not playing with house money, right? You're looking at it there. You are taking, and this goes back to a very similar situation with the Jets and Zach Wilson. He's already had shoulder and thumb surgeries where he's coming into the league where no more. You can't take those kind of hits anymore because the next one, it could be the end. And it's probably the same for Burrow. Obviously Watson had those problems coming into the league, torn ACL at Clemson. So, teams are very familiar with taking these gambles because the talent at the quarterback position is too much not to gamble on. Now, why I say I'm frustrated is I agree. I have no problem taking Jamar Chase, but they weren't afforded the luxury, I think, to take Jamar Chase. I think the problem is this is a team that does not spend wisely in free agency typically. They have not really supplemented their offensive line through free agency, I think, in a way that I would like to see. And overall, just the way they've built this team over the years, they have such significant holes and misses on the offensive line that it came down to this. So I think the safe pick was Penei Sewell. And I think Jamar Chase will be a superstar in this league. But I'm fully with you that how much does it really matter at the end of the day if the pass rush is getting home against the quarterback? You're doubling Jamar Chase, and the other guys who are very good players across from Jamar Chase aren't always going to be open in time, or your quarterback's getting hurt. So it's a tricky situation because I love the player. I think him and Burrow will have this great connection, but I thought Penei Sewell was one of the best tackles I've seen in a lot of years, and it's just very difficult to pass him in that spot.
It's just funny, Connor, that, the Bengals continue to put themselves in these positions, right? Where you have the quarterback, you have the good quarterback, but yet they don't really protect the good quarterback. Like, you have Boomer, you have Carson Palmer, the list goes on. Now you have Burrow.
And they want to leave.
They want to leave. So it's crazy.
And even going back to free agency, like they let Carl Lawson leave and then they go sign Trey Hendrickson. And
right.
It's like, it's like, Carl was a great 4th round find for them. The contract the Jets gave, there's only 2 years of guarantees.
Right.
It's just, and I know Trey's contract is, I think, 1 year of guarantees. They're just not the same caliber player. And that's it kind of has become the Bengals' way, unfortunately, a little bit.
Yeah.
Very weird how they do things. I could go on for hours about this stuff, dude. I really can. Like I could talk draft for 4 hours or something like that. But really quick. So we asked this question to everybody that we interview. It comes at the end and we've gotten a bunch of different reactions. We get a bunch of different responses.
I'm nervous.
Yeah. Who is the greatest athlete of all time in any sport?
Oh, wow. It might be Wayne Gretzky.
Wow, nice.
Okay.
I like this one.
Finally, we get a Gretzky.
We get a
really, you've never gotten one.
Nope.
We haven't gotten Gretzky yet.
I mean, people aren't huge on hockey, and I get it. The league can't market itself to save its life. I'm a diehard Rangers fan in New York, so
diehard Islanders fan over here, and I'm miserable.
Okay, I mean, respect. At least anyone that's a fan of the game. I love hockey. I'm really glad that I work for Bleacher Report, which is our parent company's Turner, and that we're getting NHL.
Right.
I was really pumped to hear that because I think that they could do a lot of great things with it.
Agreed.
Man, when you look at it, like, has anybody dominated their sport? Now, Connor McDavid is on this warpath where we're going to have a conversation soon. But has anybody really dominated their sport? And I'm sure people could answer this question with great counters. Like, I wanted to say Michael Jordan, but I'm like, man, there's been basketball players that truly have dominated the league before and after him.
Absolutely.
That MJ is the best. But there's conversations around it players before and after him. Trying to go through everything.
There is no conversation in hockey.
That's exactly it. There is no conversation. There's no conversation. Like, no. I hope McDavid gets there, but it's not one right now. Now, there's no, like you said, it's actually like hilarious when you just look at the numbers.
Nobody's even on the same street.
There's no one in the same planet. Football, like, sure, Brady's got the championships and is probably the greatest quarterback of all time, but there's still other conversations about it with Montana, and there's plenty of players. I think it's such a simple question. That's a great question because it's so layered. Baseball, I don't have one. Like, there's so many great baseball players that
dates back forever.
That's the problem too, is that the game has so many different eras. And so
Cy Young was pitching no hitters in the 1870s. Like,
yep,
insane.
Tiger really had a chance to be untouchable in golf. Obviously, the injuries are horrible. I could still sit here and say Tiger as the answer, but if he didn't have the injuries, it would have been probably Tiger. I'm trying to go through everything right now. Like, even tennis, like, I don't know the most in tennis, but I think it's a more even playing field.
Muhammad Ali?
Probably. Now, there's a lot of turmoil in his career that disrupted things, right? Yeah. Like, obviously the belt being taken, and Joe Frazier, beat Ali and gave him some really good other fights in the other two fights.
Shorten his career.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, Ali had matchups as great as he was. There's no one that did what Gretzky did. There's no one. I can't believe you never got that answer. That's pretty good. What other answers do you get a lot besides Michael Jordan?
Tell him, Mike.
So I think we've only gotten two Michael Jordans. We've gotten two Tom Brady's.
I think we got two Serenas too, right?
And we got two Serena Williams.
So it's Serena's probably the closest to Gretzky, and maybe equal.
Right.
That's why when tennis pops in my brain, I don't know the history before Serena. That's why I couldn't answer that.
Well, you have Maria.
Serena is far and away
yeah
the best women's tennis player of all time. Like,
so it's Gretzky and Serena because there's no one in their class in their sports. No one, quite frankly. It's really nuts.
Finally, we get a hockey guy. Connor, you're my man, and you're also a Mets fan too. So
I am.
The fact that these two here are Yankee fans, I finally have some backup here.
I'll say this because everybody, like my friends that are Mets fans that are very angry right now, even though they're in first place, they're like freaking out, and I get it. Like, not getting runners in from third, I'm like, man, I'm just gonna be honest with you, it's the league. Like. Yeah. You can get angry at your team not doing it.
It's the league.
We've had 6 no-hitters and it's May.
Right.
6. The record for a season is 7.
Right.
Nobody is making contact with the base. They should have never deadened the baseball because at least some of those long flyouts were becoming home runs and improve. I would rather more home runs in the game. The home run strikeout balance, as crazy as it is, now we're just having no offense. There's no one making contact.
Well, hopefully what we get is that the home run boom that these average players were on, maybe they'll actually learn how to hit again.
It's a good point. They're shorting up the swing.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right.
Well,
It's
nobody's
ruined
hitting
a lot
home
of
runs
players.
unless your name is Shohei Ohtani. Then
yeah.
then you can just do everything.
Real,
I don't know what he can't do, man.
Real home run hitters are still hitting home runs. The guys that used to hit wall scrapers and hitting 35 homers a season, they're not doing it anymore. So, you know, that's the problem, is that baseball needs to go back to baseball and guys gotta start hitting.
It does. And it'll probably start with them eventually moving the mound back, I think. The interesting one to me is I have a buddy that works for the league, and we were kind of BSing about, and he has no control over this. It was just a conversation. We were BSing about the shift. And I was like, you know what? I don't have a problem with the shift, but I have a problem with it not being limited. I don't think infielders should be on the outfield grass.
Right.
Like when you see hard contact off the TV view and the second baseman is playing right field and you're just like that's where I'm like, this isn't baseball anymore. Like, if you want to put everybody on the left side dirt, or you want to put your shortstop right at second base and take away the middle of the field, that's fine. But I do not want to see infielders in the outfield.
Listen, that's what I said about when Yerman Mercedes hit that home run off Willians Astudillo when Tony La Russa was giving him crap about it. I'm like, listen, if the pitcher and the defense can put every single guy on the right side of the field to take away my ability to get hit, then I'm allowed to crush a 3-0 45-mile-an-hour pitch.
It's amazing that, Mercedes is the one being told he's making a mockery of the game, not the guy throwing 45 miles an hour on the mound.
Right. Thank you.
I stopped playing baseball when I got to high school, and I feel like I could absolutely crack a 45-mile-per-hour pitch.
You would hit it about 470.
We're talking about the majors. The major leagues, you have somebody on the mound doing that. It's embarrassing for the sport.
Yeah.
The message was completely – and, I mean, people reacted really well. Nobody agrees with Tony La Russa, who's a dinosaur and shouldn't be coaching that team. It's just like – then don't – there's position players that throw 80. Why – it's just – it looked like a softball, like a beer league softball game. Looked like a beer league softball game. And good for Mercedes. You know what, a 28, 29-year-old rookie. He's not at arbitration yet. The dude's making no money, and he's one of the best DHs in baseball right now. Pad your stats. When you go to arbitration, you need those stats padded. Good for him, man. And I'm glad that Tim Anderson had his back.
Absolutely.
Willians Astudillo is a catcher. He could probably throw the ball 95.
He just thought they were just going to mail it in.
Right.
And you know what? No professional sport should ever mail it in.
At least knowingly, you know what I mean? Try. At least try.
Yes.
Come on now.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I know.
I definitely agree.
It's crazy.
So Connor, this was great, man. Thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, no problem, guys.
Like you said, we could speak about baseball and draft for hours, but I know you gotta go. I know you're a busy man, so thank you for coming on the show again, man.
Yeah, anytime, guys. Mike has my number. Just text me whenever you need me. It'll be a pretty chill summer. Thank God. It's nice. So, it's great, man. It really is. So I'll talk to you guys soon. All right.
All right,
Thanks,
man.
Connor. I appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Later, guys.